And so attitude to success is really important as well. Is like, actually, is this the right success for me?
Definitely, definitely. Don't listen to what your family say. Don't listen to what your closest people around you say. Actually believe in yourself that you can be whatever it is you want to be, and you'll be it. And that is the main catalyst of, from my personal opinion, everything.
Yeah.
Because if you don't believe in yourself, why are you going to believe in me if I don't even believe in myself?
So this is the Proud Talk. I'm Tracey Hill, and these are my amazing guests. And today we are going to talk about how to fail and still become unstoppable. So let's start. We have the lovely Abs, who is the founder of Fresco Box and Alac Group. We have the beautiful, beautiful author of All the Twats I Met Along the Way, and Phil, CFO of probably the fastest growing brands and tech companies in the world, actually. CFO to many of, and an investor. And, you know, so great. We're going to talk about how to fail and still become unstoppable. But a quick question. What does the word failure mean to you, or how does it resonate? What's a quick word you associate with failure?
Opportunity.
Phil?
Progress.
Progress.
Lesson.
Whoa. Yay, I love that. That's amazing. So, I failed many times in lots of things. Work, startups, relationships, marriage. Okay. I know, right? The list goes on, the list goes on. And I think I've always had a complete and utter drive, no matter what comes my way, just to keep going. And I don't know if that's the same for you, but I think coming to you, Abs, to start with, you'll hear it on the Once Lost Now Proud podcast, by the way, prison to CEO of Fresco Box. You were in prison, not once, not twice, 3 times.
As you do.
Once just wasn't enough, right?
The first time, so...
It's like, did he not learn a fucking lesson? Yeah. So 3 times, but you, after 4 months, had started Fresco Box, Gypsy King was wearing your branding, and you were winning business awards. So I suppose, what was the point where you realised, shit, I'm failing? What was that point? Was it when you're just behind bars in a box for a long time?
100%.
Right.
The fact that I was sitting there and I was just looking around and just thinking, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't for me. Remember, I've been to jail a few times, so like when you get into that reoccurring cycle of reoffending, you become a statistic, a stat, basically, right? Yeah. And I just thought, like, my parents never raised me to be like this. And when I was in jail, everyone used to say to me, why are you in here? Like you don't fit the mold. And I was just like, I fucking know. Yeah. Like, obviously, I kept making the wrong choices. You studied
business and finance as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I studied business and finance. Yeah. I didn't have, like, any other opportunities that no one else didn't have. I just made the wrong choices, and it took me a long time to hold myself accountable for what I did.
Yeah.
So my turning point was literally sitting there thinking, do you know what? I know I'm capable of great things. I'm just channeling it in the wrong thing. So it was literally sitting there after the 3rd time, unfortunately. But that was my wake-up call. I said, you know what? Yeah, this is it. I know what I've got to do, and just got to use my skills that I've already learned to kind of put it into something positive.
When did you think that's healthy food?
I thought that in prison meals.
Yeah, eating prison meals. But was it that? Was it? Prison food shit.
In a box. Like, the matter it's kind of true what he's saying, because when I was in there, I used to cook everyone's food for him. So like everyone would come to me and be like, I'm just going to cook all my chicken for me. Like, I was like the chef in prison. And it was really ironic because before I went in, I was a personal trainer. And I always used to say to myself, oh, there's loads of personal trainers and I need to add value. How can I add more value to my clients and what I'm doing? And I thought, well, I need to create a foolproof kind of formula. So the problem that I had was I always used to tell people what to eat and how to train, and if they don't do it, it's your fault, right? Your client hasn't achieved their goals, it's your fault. So I thought, well, if I make the food for you, you ain't got no excuses.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, it's impossible to fail unless you don't do as I fucking tell you to do. So it's like, eat how I tell you to eat, train how I tell you to train, you'll get the results, simple. And that was the concept, and that's how it kind of slowly started to grow, and yeah, how it became how it is.
You're in prison, you have this idea, but you leave, surely you didn't have anything.
I had about 54 pounds.
Right.
When I left, and then one of my friends had a gym. I started PTing in the gym, and then I just kind of built up my customer base, used the idea that I had, started cooking from my mum's kitchen for the clients that I had, like maybe 7 or 8 clients. I used to say to them, okay, if you tell a friend, I'll give you £5 off your next order, and it just went like that, and everyone just started telling people, and the food was nice, so that was it, really.
Amazing. And what was that pivotal point where you thought, I'm never going back to fucking prison again? What changed for you when you thought, I'm making it and I can be unstoppable now?
Probably when I started making legitimate money.
Yeah.
And it was actually making
Do you
money.
hear that, legitimate?
Like, yeah. But when it starts to come in, because people are relying on your service now, and the difference that it's making to people's lives. Remember, like, not a lot of, I say the majority of people aren't like gym heads. Some people are single parents. Some people work in the city and literally do not have the time to cook. Like, this is their life. Like, they rely on your service. So having that pressure put on me made me think, like, you know what, like, I need to leave everything else behind. Like, this is actually something that people need. And when I kind of answered that call, and that resonated with me, I was like, no, this is it. It's making a difference to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was it.
Well, then you've gone on from that to now having an aircraft component company. I mean, yeah, you amaze me every day. You absolutely do. And just released a single as well, which you'll hear soon. Now, Carolyn, I met you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago,
Yeah, and it was at a speaking event, and it was brilliant. And I thought you'd be really good for this episode because you stood up and said, I had it all and I lost everything overnight. Can you tell us, well, one, you were HR director for some very successful companies and brands. Can you just tell us a bit about what that life was like to where you feel maybe you failed in a way and how you moved on?
Yeah, I looked like I had everything. I think that's the thing. And I think a lot of people do. So I had the cars, the house, the relationship, the job. I just had it all. And like you said, I was HR director for some of the world's biggest companies and most well-known brands. But in the background, my life was it was a shit show in my personal life, and had been for decades. And I'd sort of stumbled from one thing to the other. So sort of my professional life was everything that you would expect success to look like, and my private life significantly less so. But what happened to me was that I got pushed out of a job. So my boss was a bully, and I was the only one prepared to stand up to him. So I was the only, as I put it, I was the only bird on the board. And I was the only person that was prepared to stand up to him. And as often happens, even though the wider business that espoused its values, and that those were people values, they did what they often do, is that they kept hold of the bully, and I was the one that had to leave.
Yeah.
And about 10 days after that, my partner and I, we'd been together for 3 years. I'd been a step parent to his 3 children. And he, on Friday the 13th of July, 2018. Suspicious event. He walked into the room and said, when the house is sold, this is over, you need to go, you'll never see my children again. He'd found my replacement and asked her to marry him. So that had gone on in the background. So I lost my house, I lost my relationship, my family and my job all in the space of 10 days.
And at that point, did you feel like you had failed, or that, I suppose, the world around you had just put you in this place of...
I think that, I don't want to get like really woo-woo about it because it's not the kind of person I am, but I think that the world had been trying to teach me a lesson for a really long time, and I'd not been heeding those lessons, and it decided to teach me one almighty fucking lesson. just so that I would sit up and take notice. That's how I felt. But yeah, it was me that had failed, and I still own that failure because I had allowed into my life and to stay in my life a lot of people that I should have just, not allowed to be there.
And then you turn your life completely around to becoming an author.
Yeah.
How did that work? Was it something you already did or you knew? Started writing?
No, I did do that, to be fair. It was that. Yeah. But I think it didn't happen overnight. What I did, I set about putting back in place all the tenets of success. So I got myself a new job, an even more senior job than the one I'd had. I got the car, I was buying the house, I was back in the dating game. And so I was trying to put back in place all those things that I thought success looked like. And I thought once I'd done that, I'd be fixed and it would all be fine. And I was 2 months into the new job and I had a text exchange with my best friend, like you do. And she always asks me the questions that like I should be asked, but I don't really want to be asked. And I can remember to one of them replying back and said, I don't want to do this fucking shit anymore. And it just came out of nowhere, but it was like an epiphany. It was like, oh my God, I've just said out loud what must have been rumbling for a while. And it took another year to actually leave the corporate world after that. But I started writing the book. I started thinking, right, what do I want to do? And I'd spent like 9 months in therapy after my world imploded. So I'd got to the point of suicide, you know, and I had to be rescued from that. And so I'd spent sort of 9 months in therapy unpicking what had gone on. And I think I realised there was a book in me when the clinical psychologist I was working with, and you think, okay, they've kind of been there and they've seen it. You know, she was very experienced and senior, but several times her jaw was on the floor in terms of my story. And I thought, okay, maybe I have got a story to tell in amongst all of this. So, because a lot of stuff had happened to me in the run up to sort of 2018. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to write this down because I think if this can help just one person, then I'm going to start telling my story. And I intended to write one book. It's turned into a trilogy. And from there, I just had that thing where it's like, I just need to leave sort of corporate world and I need to take my story and use it for the benefit of other people and take my failure and turn it into other people's success, I guess.
I love that. And the fact also that you've done something completely foreign to what you were doing before in the corporate world. And yeah, always learning, right?
Yeah, always, every day.
Always learning. So Phil.
I can't follow this, by the way.
Well, do you know what? I'm intrigued more so. You've obviously, you know, I know you've, like I say, you've been the CFO to some pretty big brands. When you're working with the CEOs of these companies, do they fail or are they just perfect?
Well, I think the start is everyone fails, right? So, otherwise you're not trying. I think that's the starting point. Except that I think the caveat to that is you're trying if you don't, you're failing if you don't try at all. But you're definitely you're gonna fail along the way, right? So you're always gonna be failing, and there's only moments where you actually have that success. And so absolutely, these founders are. I think I was thinking about this morning. We look at founders or even CEOs of companies, and we expect them to have every single answer. It's almost like this. It's kind of almost like a view of like a superhuman parent. Right, it's like they're the strongest on the planet. They can do whatever they want to do, and we almost hold up founders to kind of have that, and realizing that they're just figuring it out the same way that everyone else is, and it's an incredibly lonely place. And I think that often, and more as I've spent more time around more founders, we look at success as a bad thing for founders as well, especially in the UK, where we'll report how much money they've made, how much this, how much that. We never talk around the sacrifice. We never talk around the loneliness, the challenges that they've had. And it's almost like even when they're successful, they don't get the recognition for the effort and the sacrifices. So it's a pretty tough journey to take, as you're doing right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is me failing.
I'm actually not failing by doing it, right?
Not failing, right? Exactly. You have to put yourself out there. And when you're starting out, what's the best advice that you can give to people starting their own, little company, I suppose, or what it is? From things that they should watch out for and be careful of, especially from a financial perspective. But what's your advice there for them starters?
I always think the first thing is to understand why you're doing it. And are you ready to go on that journey? Because it's hard. I think a lot of people, it's almost like, oh, this is a get rich quick scheme. The reality is there isn't, right?
There's no
there isn't a get rich quick, right? It's and very very occasionally there might be somebody who just actually lands on something and it happens, but it's like ignore this is going to be an easy way to make money. It's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
Having a job is generally easier for making money than actually starting a company. And so if you understand why you're doing it, what's the motivation behind it, and then getting people to really challenge you on that.
Yeah.
Because if you turn and said, this is going to be your life for the next 10 years, forget friendship, forget the dating, forget all this. That's the journey you're going on. Sleepless nights, stuff you don't even know about, the stress, the no's. Are you ready for that for the next 10 years? And if you still say, yes, I'm that passionate about it and I believe in it, cool, go and do it. Because it can be incredibly crushing.
Yeah.
So it's, you've got to be ready for that battle.
It can be, and I think also it can get a bit lonely in a way, because if you're not part of a team, it's just you, isn't it? But you just have to keep going. I've just found that I think you hit the nail on the head then. If it's something that you're passionate about and the why is right, and if you're doing it for the next 10 years, you're just as happy as the day that you first started, that's what you should be doing. And before I started Once Lost Now Proud, I had a clothing company, I'd invested in something else, and you know what, I was still brought back to the thing I loved doing, which was the podcast, and how it made, the impact it had on others and how it made them feel, and because it was relatable. So that's why I thought, I'm sticking to my guns, and this is why we're in the Proud Time.
I love it. Well, thank you, right? Because it's true.
Well, thank you. I absolutely love this. What I said to you earlier, Abs, there's lots of people that, well, when we first started talking, that I would love to go into a prison to understand, one, what they're feeling and what their outlook is like, to know that, and just to explain that this isn't the end for you. What did you feel like then? Obviously, you didn't think it was the end for you, and you were going to challenge the status quo, right, to make a difference. But what advice would you give to those that are inside or have got a criminal record, they've just been released, and they have a dream, but they don't go after it because they think, or they even want to go for a job, but there's something on their criminal record?
I'd say use the skills that you have and that you're known for, and use that as your catalyst, so transitional skills. So if I relate it back to what I was doing, is unfortunately, I went to jail for selling drugs or whatever. But borderline, I was an entrepreneur. Because I'd already done sales, marketing, human resources,
supply chain,
quality control.
This is true, though.
For me,
product testing.
For me, the analogy that I love to use is Fresco Box is still the same process as a drug deal, because I still go to my supplier, I get consignment, I break it down, I weigh it, I put it in a bag, the phone rings, and it goes out. It's just jerk chicken.
It's just jerk
and that's it. So when you understand,
it's so true.
It's the same process, but that could be the same. You could sell
with
buttons,
anything.
you can sell whatever you want to sell, understanding that same process, that that's how business works. And obviously there's a lot more things that go into it, but that and actually believing in yourself, that is the main thing. For me, the main turning point for my personal view, and what I'd say to people is, you gotta fucking believe in yourself. Like, wake the fuck up and believe in yourself. And if you want to be an astronaut, fucking go and do what astronauts need to do. Do you know what I mean? And actually do it, and don't listen to what your family say, don't listen to what your closest people around you say. Actually believe in yourself that you can be whatever it is you want to be, and you'll be it. And that is the main catalyst of, from my personal opinion, everything. Because if you don't believe in yourself, why are you going to believe in me if I don't even believe in myself? So, that's definitely the advice I'd give to someone that's coming out of jail. Sit down, write down what you want to do, and fucking believe it, vision it, and just do it. And
I think one thing I loved what you said, which is the simplicity.
Yeah.
When you break something down, it's not like, there's a lot of people like make it like incredibly complicated,
Yeah.
and that just scares the shit out of you, and you say, I'm not going to start.
Yeah.
When you break it down, I've actually done this before. I'm just going to apply it to a different thing.
Yeah.
I know how to do this, right?
Exactly.
It's like it's not that complicated. Yeah.
Life is simple.
Yeah.
We make things complicated.
We do.
If you keep
don't
it simple, what's that saying? Keep it simple, stupid.
Stupid, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just keep
Yeah.
it simple and yeah.
And it's finding the elements as well. You know, it's like you say, somebody wants to be an astronaut. Okay, so if there's something about you that means you might not ever get to be an astronaut, whatever that might be, it might be sort of, you know, something physically about you or whatever that might be, or opportunity. But actually it's about breaking down what is it about being an astronaut that excites you? What's the elements of that
100%.
that excite you?
100%.
And find those elements. Like, you know, you say, you know, the transition for me, say from HR to doing what I do now, there's huge amounts of my HR career that I use in what I'm doing. I used to have to write a lot of reports, you know, write a lot of emails. I used to have to communicate. You know, I public speak now, and I used to have to get up and do presentations at work. And I've spent my career dealing with people, and now I have a business where I'm helping to change the lives of people. I just now do it in a personal setting and not in a corporate setting. So it's about finding the elements, because I didn't leave HR because I didn't like HR. I left the corporate world because I was fed up of trying to persuade grown-ups to behave properly. That's the bit I left behind.
Yeah.
But now it's, you know, I'm now working with grown-ups who want to behave differently and properly because they want to change something in their lives. So it's finding the elements of it and then using those.
Amazing.
And with your book, All the Twats I Met Along the Way, I love that, by the way. Where did you start? This is another.
I just need to say, when you're a writer, everything is content. So wherever you go, whoever you meet, everything is content. And it is a twats trilogy.
Yeah.
It isn't just one book. So like, you know, book 2 is De-Twat Your Life, book 3 is Twats at Work. So, you know, guys, there's opportunity.
That's what I'm at in Tracey's sofa.
Yeah. But how did you start that process of, because I know there's so many people out there that would love to write about their story, their journey.
Yeah.
How do you break that down into the chat? I think, like you said, I see the book already. I'm not seeing the breakdown of the chapters.
Yeah. First and foremost, like, just start. And I know that sounds really simple, but it doesn't matter where you start. I did actually write it chronologically in terms of about my teens. And I did do that, although you switch backwards and forwards as you're writing it. But just start writing something.
Yeah.
Get a feeling and start writing that. And I think that was one of the hardest things and one of the most rewarding things, is that to write about my life, I had to go back to those moments, because I could only write about them authentically if I felt what I felt at the time. So there was times when I was writing it and sobbing because I had to go back to what were those emotions at the time. Other times when I was sitting by myself laughing my head off like a maniac, or texting friends and going, do you remember when we had this? And, you know, or this went on. So just start. Actually,
I was just thinking, have you guys already met? Because like you were just sitting on your own laughing. And stuff. There's some backstory here.
But like, I think you know,
Calling you up, hey, I'm just writing up. Can you give me some of that food?
But I think sometimes it is just start, you know, and it will evolve. And you have to, again, it's like the failure thing. You have to be prepared to go back and change something and shift it or rewrite it or reorder it. Writing is almost like a constant process of failure to get the outcome, because you have to be prepared all the time to shift it, and a new perspective comes along. So, so just start. That is honestly, and I say that in business as well, you know. Just, somebody said to me the other day, look, just choose. Stop messing about, procrastinating or worrying. Just choose something and do it. It might not be the right thing, but it will contribute to something somewhere.
Great. And Phil, again, I'm really intrigued to know, what was that? The cat? Sorry, my cat. Being silly. Is there a point where, you know, you said earlier that, you know, failure is learning, and if you don't fail, then you're not really going anywhere. You personally, have you failed, like, massively at anything?
Oh, there's one which, so I had a real, I guess, a challenge, which was at school. I found school incredibly easy. And so it taught me to be very, very lazy, right? Like, passing exams was not that hard. Until eventually get caught out. And I got caught out at university. So I went back to my hometown university and basically just didn't turn up for 3 years. And literally didn't turn up. And came out essentially with like an incredibly terrible degree. And it's about expectation and failure are two interests because they're highly coupled. What people expect of you is actually your ability to demonstrate failure. When you have no expectation, like success is really easy. When you have high expectation, actually success can become impossible. And so for me, it was like one where it was just always been really easy. So there was never really that chance of being successful because actually expectations were way higher. But everything was really easy. So application was probably my biggest problem. And then university, I completely like screwed it up. And I had to actually go through and work really hard to actually recover from that.
See, that really surprises me about you, and I know the companies that you've been a CFO for. That's mental.
Yeah, and I got a terrible degree, right, and had to work, and then had to kind of, I mean, not to the same extreme, but actually recover, because everyone's like, well, you're obviously an idiot because you didn't have this piece of paper at the level you should have. And so going on their journey, but turning it around, so I went back to my hometown, Salford, for my university, because I was passionate about being back in my hometown. And recently I got approached and said they were changing their board members, or their council as they call it. And I got approached to say, would I be interested in applying? And I think they had about 7,000 applications.
Wow.
And I had to write a motivation letter. And I just wrote them an apology. And my apology was, look, I was just not worthy of this position, right? I screwed it up, somebody else should have taken it. I just wasn't ready for it. Yeah. In the end, I actually got on the board. So finally I've gone from being and literally if they looked at, the thing is, they got me back, right, because they put me in the audit and risk committee. Which, if you look at my background, it's like, why did you do that to me? But like, literally, it's like that journey of probably being one of their worst ever students, and actually then at least accepting me back onto the board over a 20-year cycle. So,
that's amazing.
But I mean, you fail every day, right?
And it's okay. It's so allowed. Like, I don't know why people put this negative spin on failure. I don't know if it's instilled from us as kids in a way.
I think so. I talk about it in one of my books, actually, in that we like needing to change our relationship with failure. Because I think, when you have a small child, right, and it's learning to walk, like, what do we do when they fail, right? We pick them back up again, don't we? We go, wow, you got a really long way this time. You got further than last time. And we pick them back up and we encourage them and we shout them on. At what point does that definition of failure turn to something negative? And I honestly do think it's in schools. It becomes competition. It becomes like, you're an idiot if you don't sort of, get the right grades. And we start to become afraid of failure because it becomes associated with shame. And I think when it becomes associated with shame, then that's it. And that becomes instilled in us, I think. And we kind of forget at what point in our lives that happens. But for me, anyway, and for a lot of people I talk to, I think that happens at school. And it's about changing that mindset about failure and seeing it as the way that we've all described it, as it's opportunity, it's lessons, it's a chance to do something different and better and step on and make progress. But we need to start thinking about it like that, because we sort of stand and point at people that fail and go like, look at you, and sort of laugh and with derision, don't we?
It's kind of one where you look at it's always funny, right? You imagine like you see somebody who's doing sport, right, and they're out in the street running and they might not be in the best shape. But hey, guess what? They're on the start of that journey. They're out there doing it, right? And so, and it's like you look at them like running wild. It's like, wait a minute, but they're actually out doing it, right? So it's not the people who are out running; it's the people who are not. Right. That's and again, it's they've started that journey. They're out saying, "I'm going to go," right? And so actually, that first step is success. Then the question is then just what that curve looks like in terms of, do you want to be an Olympic athlete or just want to like make it round the block, right? Whatever, who cares? You're doing something.
I think your perception on failure as well is really important. Like you said, like I think we've been programmed from kids to think that failure's a really, really negative thing. But for me personally, as I've matured throughout life, I've understood failure isn't bad. Like it's not. Like you actually need to fail. When I look at all the successful people that I aspire to kind of emulate, they've all failed. No one's just gone and had it off. And if you did, I don't know if you'd appreciate it if you did fail, because that would be a very hard fall down to the bottom. You wouldn't know. You'd probably be in a worse position than you was when you started. So it's like, for me, failing my way to the peak of success it's an amazing process, and I'm loving it. So
yay!
Yeah, like we said, everyone can relate. Like we've all failed in different aspects: family, relationships, friendships, financially. Everyone's fucked up. And it's cool because sometimes you feel like you're the only person that's been in that hole when everyone has. Most people are still in it. It's cool. Like, so, for me, being around more people that have failed, you learn a lot more because you're like, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to do that now because I've learned from so-and-so not to do this or not to do that. So failure's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I think the one is actually, and since you mentioned talking about the Gypsy King, right, is that look at Mike Tyson Fury and you go, actually, success can hide actually places where you are failing.
100%.
Right, and it's like, it's almost like, it's not genuine success, right? It's somebody else's success or it's things you think.
Yeah.
And so attitude to success is really important as well. Is like, actually, is this the right success for me?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really true, and I just think as well, it's like it's that opportunity all the time to evolve, and that's the bit that I enjoy about what I'm doing now, because I just feel like I'm evolving all the time.
Yeah.
And I you know, I've always said, you know, the moment I think that I've got nothing left to learn is the day that I need to lie down and stop breathing, because I just think that you never stop finding out something, and if you've always got that curiosity and something you can learn, you know, and for me, you know, when my world all imploded, you know, the belongings that I had, you know, which at the time I thought were really important, you know, because I sort of clung to them as some sort of stability, everything went into storage. And it
Which
took...
is a stupid concept in itself, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But then when I finally sorted myself out and got somewhere to live, you know, I just realised I hadn't seen that stuff in like 18 months.
Yeah.
And actually, just a few sentimental items. You know, there were things that, like, you know, my family have given me. Some of those things that came out.
Who knows,
you know, you like, you know. But the other stuff.
And the rest.
But you know, it's like you just think, I've not seen this chair in a year and a half. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. I know. He's a nightmare. Okay.
Both of you.
One last quick question. What is... I love reading and all self-help type books. What was the book that you read which changed something about you or changed your outlook?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Unlimited Power, Tony Robbins.
Unlimited Power, Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I've not read that one.
You should read it. It's really good. Yeah, you should read it.
Carolyn?
Gosh, there's been several, but I
just
would
want
say,
one. Just
yeah,
one.
I know. I love my books. Attached. Okay. So it's all about attachment theory and relationships.
Okay, thank you. Phil?
What are books? I'm back to
He's like,
my days of self.
This is the kind of fun you need.
he's like, give me Excel any day.
I'll give you my book. You can read that.
So is there any books or something that you'd read or an event that you'd go to which could potentially
No, I think
open?
there's I think the book that I've enjoyed the most and I've used the most in terms of talking to people is A Law on Culture, which is Good to Great.
Law on Culture.
Which is good to great. I think by Jim Collins, because I just think that captures the essence around, and the headline is it's all about discipline.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter what it is you do, it's about discipline.
Brilliant.
And I think that brings it back.
Great.
So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it, guys. That was episode 1, and this is The Proud Talk.